Which is the longest dungeon in Majora's Mask? I asked you guys which ones you think takes the longest, and the answers were completely one-sided. Today, we're gonna find out for sure. Just like with Ocarina of Time, I want to be clear that this list is very subjective. Some dungeons may take you longer than it took me depending on your experience or play style. I know Majora's Mask very well, so if you're playing through for the first time, your times will probably look a lot different than mine. I'll be breaking down every single mandatory dungeon room, adding up every single room and outlining what made the dungeon either long or short. Here are the rules. I'll be starting a timer the moment I enter each dungeon and stopping it the second the boss is defeated. I won't be going for every optional chest, so not every single map, compass, or stray fairy. But if a chest is right in front of me, I guess it's fair game. Also, no glitches, just straightforward runs with solid knowledge of the game. And just like in my Ocarina of Time video, I'll be using the original N64 version of Majora's Mask. Alright, let's kick things off with the first dungeon of the game, the Woodfall Temple. The Woodfall Temple starts off with some basic Deku Link mechanics and isn't difficult. From the second room, we can quickly use Deku Link again to make our way to the right. I'm not going to worry about the room directly ahead of me since it just leads to the map, so we're just going to pivot to the left and grab a key in this chest. We can leave this room now. Back in this room, let's go through the locked door. This fourth room starts with some basic block pushing. These guys are annoying in this game though. The room directly ahead of me leads to the compass, so we're just going to ignore that too. We can use this lit torch to burn the webs at the top of the room and make our way to the next room on the upper floor. This room is very dark and annoying. You don't have to kill these guys. I just did because they're extremely friggin' annoying, but again, you don't have to. Light all the torches to open the door. Simple but slow because of this dark layout. The sixth room uses more Deku Link flying mechanics with a touch more difficulty, and probably the most difficult and time-consuming room. You have to land on moving platforms while also avoiding the dragonflies, and these guys can be very annoying. Not that difficult, but try not to fall down the hole. Going downstairs, we arrive back at the second main room where we can step on the switch for a shortcut. The room to the left of us is the room where we got the one key in this dungeon, only at a higher level. We've seen this guy before, right? This is the mini boss room where we get the always important bow and arrow. Back in the previous room, we can use it to get across the gap into the 8th room and the boss key room. I always love these guys for some reason. Let's get back to the main room. Night of the first day only? Once you light the torch, you can get atop the moving platform for a tougher challenge, trying to do the exact same thing, but moving. This took me a couple tries. And clearly I don't know what I'm doing. The 9th room and the boss door room can look a bit intimidating, but it's actually simple. You're timed here, so respectfully move your ass. Also, don't get hit by these annoying ass dragonflies once again. The boss can be defeated rather quickly if you make use of the spin, but I really didn't have much luck here, and he quite literally gave me nightmares as a kid. I'm just gonna say, like, literally, this guy gave me nightmares. The final time of the Woodfall Temple was 13 minutes and 9 seconds. In total, the Woodfall Temple had 10 rooms plus 2 optional rooms, as well as 2 floors. It's a very basic first dungeon, but a complete step up in difficulty from the Deku Tree in Ocarina of Time. There are no rooms of note that should take you a considerable amount of time, so this time is pretty accurate. On to the next. This is actually one of the most underrated Zelda dungeons in the series in my opinion. This block can only be pushed by Goron Link while also getting killed by these guys apparently. The room to the right is the only one we can access right now, so let's just head there. This room can be extremely annoying and time consuming if you don't time it right. See what I mean? Okay, that's better. The third room and the main room can be very overwhelming and shows how damn vertical this dungeon is, but honestly, that's what I love about it. Using a classic Zelda puzzle, we can melt this ice. Let's ignore it for now and move on to the fourth room, with the key behind these. Going back to the room with the ice we melted takes us to the first room again, where we can now use a key to the right. We can skip this chest, it's just the compass. This upstairs room might kill some time trying to shoot all these icicles, and you might get caught up getting some extra rupees or stray fairies, but it also has a key that you have to get. This 7th room can honestly be a bit annoying, but basically hit the switches in the right order to clear the door with Goron Link, and hurry because you're timed. This room might take a few tries for you, but didn't add to my time too much. And we're back into the main room, just a lot higher. Let's use Goron Link. Don't fall off this, guys, please. This 8th room is actually optional. It's really just a shortcut from the 2nd room up to the higher level and vice versa, so we can leave. The room directly ahead is the mini boss room with the fire arrows. I like to use Goron Link for this, but you can also use arrows. It's really preference. I don't think anything is better than the other, really. There's a bit of backtracking here back to the 2nd room where we can get a chest with the fire arrows containing a key. Back in the main room, we can use the fire arrows to melt the ice into the 10th room. This room is guaranteed to take up your time, especially if you run out of magic, so make sure that your shots are accurate here and you're nailing all of them. This area is still part of the main room and allows the central platform to rise. Nice. It took me about a minute to get back to the 2nd floor of the central room, and these can be smashed now. Total brain fart moment right here. You don't need to fall down here, guys. Trust me. Getting back to the central room, we can now melt this ice, leading us to the 3rd floor. And this is where I got ahead of myself. I forgot to smash the other ice, which killed a bit of time later. Also, the 11th and 12th rooms are basically useless. You don't have to kill these enemies, so let's just completely ignore them. Okay, that's better. Now we can break these and move to the top floor. And this is where I completely forgot about Deku Link. The 13th room is the boss key room. And we just passed the time of the Woodfall Temple. Once again, as a kid, this boss scared the absolute hell out of me. I believe the fastest way to kill this guy is the intended way with Goron Link. But I feel like you can also, what I did as a kid is I would just stand there with an arrow and just try to shoot him. But I think that this is the fastest way here. This boss can be a lot longer and did kill some time for me with these stupid ass shocks. Also, Goron Link losing his damn charges, like come on. It's not a real difficult boss though, and gives us a final time of 18 minutes and 41 seconds. In total, the Snowhead Temple had 13 mandatory rooms with 4 floors and a basement, so it's extremely vertical. This dungeon has the potential to being one of the longer dungeons if you continue to fall, and the opportunity is always there. There was also quite a bit of backtracking, which added to the time. On top of everything, it's not a linear dungeon by any means. There's also the potential of screwing up the ice discs, and hitting one too many and having to reset it all the way back to the bottom can be extremely tedious and time consuming. This was a near perfect playthrough, but will take you longer than 18 minutes on your first or second run, of course, all things considered. But it isn't an extremely long dungeon by any means, just has the potential to be very tedious. Nothing extremely tricky puzzle-wise though. And this is what I consider one of the better water dungeons in the series. After saying bye to our friend, we can easily head straight to the 2nd room. Very confusing looking room here, but pushing the switch in the corner will allow us to progress. This same room is connected to the central room, which can take a bit of time to understand. The water is only moving one way, so some might try and waste their time going the other way, but you'll pick up on that fast. These guys can be super annoying too. Here I completely wasted time staying in this room where I didn't even have a key, so let's move on. Instead, you want to head through the yellow or orange path. We can't do anything here, so let's just keep moving. This 3rd room, we can grab this key and return back to the red path. Don't do that. Ouch. This room just allows you to replenish any magic or arrows for this moderately difficult mini boss. For this dungeon, guys, it has a rather quick time to the mini boss. I've always had a hard time with this mini boss though, and if I didn't have a fairy, then I would have added way more to my time. Now for one of my favorite items in the entire series. We can use them back in this room on these octos and then push this lever to unblock more pipes. We can return to the other path once again, and this time use the ice arrows to make our way to this room ahead. Isn't that amazing? This chest is the compass, so let's just ignore it. This sixth room is straightforward and allows us to unblock this red pipe here. That'll happen, don't worry. We can now make a path for the big key, ignoring the chest in the corner. That's the dungeon map. This guy is pretty straightforward and shouldn't take too much of your time. And we just passed the time of the Woodfall Temple. Okay, now it's time to change the flow of the water. So back into the second room, there should now be a way for us to push this lever, completely changing the direction of the flow. Let's not forget this lever so we can get back up. Back in the main room, you'll notice that the water is flowing in a different direction, and that's a good thing. Before we hop in, we have to tackle a room above this ladder here. This 8th room can be one of the most annoying rooms, especially if you're getting the stray fairies. Thank God we aren't. You don't have to be relatively quick here, and don't fall. This lever unblocks this green pipe. Now let's finally head back and hop in the water. One of these paths is the boss door room, so if you find yourself there, just go through the other path. I had a total brain fart moment right here, so make sure that you don't freeze the water until after this platform raises you all the way up. Now we can make our way to the 9th room. Another annoying room that will be time consuming if you don't know what you're doing. We just passed the time of the Snowhead Temple. Let's unblock this pipe. Yeah, it's not worth it. And we're back in the room with the compass. All that's left is the boss. If you've done everything right, you should now be able to access him after unblocking this final pipe. This is by far the hardest boss in the game and always has my number. It's not super annoying to get back to the boss, but there is a fairy in this first room. And I died again. Thank God for that fairy. That is always a hard ass boss, but the final time was 28 minutes and 8 seconds. The Great Bay Temple is not like the other temples with this layout. It's a very unique layout with not only distinct rooms, but there's also flowing interconnected rooms. So if I were to count the rooms, I only counted the ones that you can actually open a door and head into. So there were a total of 10 of those rooms with 1 floor and 2 basements. This is a dungeon where the player has to actually think and problem solve. The central mechanic of controlling water currents forces you to revisit rooms multiple times. Lots of backtracking here. Not to mention, every lever that unblocks a pipe builds on another, so if you miss one, you won't be able to progress. There's less of an emphasis on combat in this dungeon and more on figuring out the correct routing through the currents. It's actually a pretty linear dungeon, but doesn't feel like it. This wasn't a perfect run. I did die with the boss twice, but it still was a good playthrough. Overall, this dungeon will force you to think more than the other dungeons, but if you understand what to do, like actually understand, it's not that long, and I genuinely would love to know how long it took you for your first time. And now for my favorite temple in the entire series. This first room, we can ignore everything and head to the left. At this point, you're used to this stupid ass melody, and for this room, you're stepping on each switch with regular, Goron, and Zora Link. A bit time consuming here, but whatever. Outside, we can bomb this floor. And die. Anyways, this basement room can be solved using the mirror shield. Not sure why I opened this dungeon map chest, but we got it anyways. Before leaving, there's a key that we can grab after killing his Armos. Let's go upstairs. This next room takes advantage of the Zora Link, and actually one of the more frustrating rooms. It took me so many tries here to time this jump because 1, I can't see for crap in this N64 version. Like seriously, why is it so dark here? So I spent about a minute trying to get it. We can now swim along this path. This switch at the bottom of this room creates an upside down stray fairy chest, so we can't get it even if we wanted to yet. Resurfing, we can now head to the 5th room and another annoying one. Basically, you have to charge these mirrors while also, once again, avoiding these annoying ass things. Make sure you spend at least 5 seconds charging each mirror because you're on the clock the second you stop. With all these sun switches as well, this room could take up more of your time, but they're all optional. Once again, another annoying ass room. Here I just wasted time not even realizing that I didn't lower the flames. Oh my god, I just made it. And this was a stray fairy anyways. I always forget that. Now, this always takes me a couple tries. I always like to go backwards here. But that didn't work. It okay, it only took me one extra try in this room, so I didn't waste too much time here. This room is the first mini boss room, and he's pretty annoying, honestly. This guy isn't bad. Let's go. I ran out of magic for this guy and honestly panicked here because I thought that light arrows were the only way to kill him, but it turns out regular arrows work just fine. Phew. This chest contains a stray fairy, so we can just ignore it. As much as I wanted to ignore this idiot, he made it clear that I couldn't ignore him. God, I hate them so much. But we aren't done yet. And we just passed the time of the Woodfall Temple. Going outside, we have to flip the entire temple upside down. I love that so much. Now for the other half. Let's head to the right and use our arrows on this block here. Another brain fart moment here. If we head into this hall here, we can step on this switch, which gives us a key. We can now use this key on this upper room here, if you can make it there in one piece. This is a basic puzzle for this room, which I'm too lazy to change into Goron Link for. This room utilizes the same idea, but this time we have to continue to switch the dungeon layout so the block lands on the switch. We'll take you a couple minutes here. Once again, we have this guy, but you should have the idea by now. We just passed the time of the Snowhead Temple. The only reason I'm getting this stray fairy, guys, is for the heart. We can switch back to Deku Link for this room and fly in here to grab a key. Same idea in this room, we just need to get rid of these spikes. Don't get hit by these guys before the second mini boss room. This is one of the hardest mini bosses in the series that always has my damn number. Luckily, I was prepared and had 2 fairies in this run, but it is a pain to get back to this room, which will add quite a bit of time trying to get back to it. But luckily, we save time here. But if you're good at this game, then you wouldn't even have to worry about your fairies. Making our way back to the second Deku Link room, we can now take the door to the left. Another very annoying puzzle trying to quickly grapple up to the chest while avoiding this idiot. See what I mean? With no fairies, I was stressing here. Like, I'm sure I was literally sweating here. Look how close that was. This guy is straightforward once again to receive the Giant's Mask. We just passed the time of Great Bay Temple. The boss door room is very simple. Twin Mold itself, another easy boss that's easily taken care of with the Giant's Mask. I didn't have the full upgraded magic container here, which would have saved more time since I always had to stop and grab some, but that didn't kill too much time. The final time was 33 minutes and 2 seconds, which makes this the longest dungeon of the 4 main ones. Which is funny because it also has the least amount of rooms with a total of 9 rooms and 3 floors. What makes this dungeon long are a combination of things. One, you have to go through it twice. Not once, but twice. While it's still a pretty linear dungeon, it tests your abilities from every single version of Link and also has a high combat difficulty with 2 mini bosses. Twin Mold, the boss isn't so bad though. You'll be forced to play the Elegy of Emptiness multiple times, which is going to kill even more time. The Stone Tower Temple isn't the most vertical dungeon, but it's the longest of the 4 main dungeon for a reason and emphasizes heavily both on combat and everything you've learned throughout the game. The final dungeon, if you can call it that. This is highly debatable if it's a dungeon in the first place. Let me know in the comments if you guys call this or consider this a dungeon. I always like to use Goron Link to speed things up here. We're going to play this dungeon assuming that you've gotten every single mask. So obviously if you haven't, then your times really can't be compared here at all. We'll start with the Goron trial because I found this guy first. As a kid, this trial always took me long since it's a bit of a puzzle, but I know which path to take here. Okay, if you don't get screwed over, then it's a breeze. There we go. Pretty easy. We'll go with the Deku trial next. This one is even more straightforward and it's just about timing really. I'm just gonna ignore that heart piece. Easy. The Stone Tower trial is a bit different and is more of a gauntlet challenge. The first room, piece of cake. We can ignore this stone. The second guy is always a bit annoying, but nothing we haven't seen before. The next is the beloved Iron Knuckle, so don't die here. But we aren't done, and getting out of this room requires a well-timed bomb chew. A free piece of heart here too. If we look up, we can use another bomb chew to move on and finish this trial. The last trial on my list, and probably the most frustrating, was the Zora trial. It took me about 5 minutes of extra time to try and find the right route here. This can be a really annoying puzzle. One route may take you to a piece of heart while the rest make you start over. And we just passed the time of the Woodfall Temple. Keep trying and eventually you can do this, but this is probably the most time consuming part of this dungeon here. This leads us to the final boss and the easiest part of the dungeon with the Fierce DD mask. Like honestly, this fight will take you like a minute max, giving us a final time of 16 minutes and 36 seconds. This was a different style final dungeon, with gauntlet and trial-like rooms. Not really long at all, and it's really just the Goron platforming and the Zora trial that may be time consuming. In a perfect run, this is the shortest dungeon in the game, if I took 5 minutes off the time it took me to find the right room in the Zora trial, because if I did that, this dungeon would be shorter than the Woodfall Temple, so take this time with a grain of salt. And this is the final dungeon ranking from longest to shortest. There is a clear pattern here. With the exception of the final dungeon, each dungeon gets longer and more complex as you progress. Adding up the times from every dungeon, it took about 1 hour and 45 minutes to complete all of them, which is totally surprising to me. I know that Majora's Mask is the shortest 3D Zelda, but seeing how altogether took less than 2 hours is very surprising. On average, each dungeon took 21 minutes and 55 seconds to complete, which is only 20 seconds longer than the average dungeon time I got in Ocarina of Time. Again, very surprising here. I want to know, did anything here surprise you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing for more Zelda content like this. Next time in this mini-series, we'll be timing every dungeon in Wind Waker. So stay tuned. Have a great day.